Across the years, anime has developed and changed, evolving as it continues to grow. Yet it's easy to forget the very foundation that made it what it is today. For instance, between 1995 and 1999, anime was more than just entertainment. It was therapeutic, philosophical, and sometimes an abstract piece of art and storytelling. It was a time when anime wasn't afraid to be confusing, dabbling into philosophical themes that made it a bit uncomfortable at times. A time before algorithms and quick dopamine loops, when creators chased more of meaning in their works and not metrics, which in turn led to some of the best works in anime artistically till date, in my opinion. Over the years, anime continued to change in many ways, which I'll talk about in this video series. But for now, welcome to the late 90s, 1995 to 1999 to be exact, a period where anime was more about realism, reflecting pieces of the world we live in today. Welcome to Anime in Years. Oh, fucking hell, this shit is fucking hot, man. Japan in the late 90s was wrestling with uncertainty, the burst of the economic bubble, a sense of lost direction, the rise of digital life. Anime mirrored a bit of that confusion. Stories stopped being about heroes saving the world or war propaganda and started being more about people trying to express an emotion or feeling in the language of anime. Maybe that's why we still think back on most of the shows still from that time. It was an age when characters didn't always win. Sometimes they just existed. And in that stillness, they reflected something raw people of that time felt. That is, the collective anxiety of a changing world. That's why a show like Evangelion became a classic during this era. Yes, it was mostly about giant robots fighting supposed angels, but subtly it was more about loneliness, fear of intimacy, and what happens when saving the world doesn't fix you, apparently. Evangelion at the time fitted perfectly with the giant robot Gundam aesthetic, while delivering thought-provoking, never-before-seen depictions of how far humans can go to save the world in a broken state. Visually, anime from this era carried a kind of grit modern digital polished anime can't replicate. Cell animation, an animation style which involved hand-drawn frames, raw lighting, and imperfect motion, gave everything a living texture. You could feel the soul put into every motion, the intentionality in the art direction, and emotions behind their color grading. Series like Cowboy Bebop mastered this balance, fluid movements, and a stylish animation mimicking the emptiness within each character's struggle. Every scene was cinematic and deliberate, like a jazz solo comforting the soul at a moment of weakness. Its world felt alive, not because of its inherent detail, but because of its tone and feel. Although it's my favorite, you can't help but really feel the atmosphere when watching Cowboy Bebop. Its music choices alone evokes this melancholic feeling that tugs at you, while watching each character live in the moment, as they are, and still struggling deep down with their pasts. Anime in this era also asked hard questions, which posed a philosophical train of thought that related more in our time than then. For example, Serial Experiment Lane asked, what happens when our minds go online? Reality becomes mere suggestions, and living itself becomes performative. And this is long before the internet became what it is today. It was eerie, quiet, disorientating, and overall intentionally crafted to convey a message, which spoke on the loneliness and dissociative nature of living in an interconnected world, as we see is the cause in today's society. Meanwhile, Berserk was more dark and gritty with its messages. The darkness of ambition, betrayal, and human will are things we see in its story. Its philosophy was of pain and struggle, along with the brutality of constantly living in what is in fact your worst nightmare, each and every day of your life, with no end in sight. The hand-drawn animation in its earlier adaptation carried a tragic weight that the CGI continuation could never recreate later on. Some scenes from Berserk were uncomfortable and not designed to entertain everyone, to be honest. I feel they were meant to make you question the world, its darkness, and eventually humanity's suffering from the choices of those wanting power. Behind each of these masterpieces were stories defining what anime could be at the time, like Gainax with Evangelion, Madhouse with Perfect Blue, Trigon, Sunrise with Cowboy Bebop, and Studio Ghibli with Princess Mononoke at the time. But where did they come from? Where did all these studios and the ones we came to know today originate from in the grand scheme of things? Well, it all started from the first recorded anime studio before Toei, called Kitayama Eiga Seisa Kujo, founded by Seitaro Kitayama in 1917. It ended abruptly in 1923 due to the Great Kanto earthquake, but soon after his student Sane Yamamoto picked up his legacy and found a studio in 1923 on his own called Yamamoto Eiga Seija Kujo, which lasted till 1930s. This served as a training ground for Masaoka Kenzo, the person later regarded as the father of anime. And from there, Masaoka Film Production got founded in 1933, implementing sound and cell animation at its early stages to create somewhat moving anime. Later, it got merged in 1940 into a government-supported war-time animation studio called Nihongo Doga Eiga, which went on to create Japan's first feature-length animated film in 1945. Later, other key animators left, along with independent freelancers, to form the first recognized anime studio in 1948, we all know as Toei Animation, forming the very foundation of modern anime studios we know today, and many more, but that's the story for another episode. Personally, when I watched shows from this era for the first time, I always felt an emotional stir within, or once I was done with it, a lingering feeling that persisted constantly, making me introspective in every little time I had to think for myself, while facing reality. Characters in these shows were easy to project onto, even though I was too young then to realize it. Growing older now, rewatching them, it really puts things into perspective. It made me realize now that you first have to settle what lingers within you before anything from outside you begins to bring meaning to your life. As the decade ended, anime was already changing. Digital animation was rising, and eventually the 2000s would bring cleaner visuals but lose a bit of that analog soul in its path. Still, what the late 90s left behind was more than nostalgia. It was introspection. Anime started asking questions that society wasn't ready for, like, what does identity mean in a hyper-connected world? Do our past dictate how we continue to live in the present? Will all our suffering amount to a better future, or are we doomed to our sometimes unjust fate? Who knows? That's for you to discover, or let me know in the comments. So when you revisit anime from this era, don't just look at what happened, feel what it was trying to say. Because this was the era where anime didn't just entertain, it spoke to us subtly. Next time we step into the 2000s, when anime embraced change. I'm Joseph, and I'll see you next time.